Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to another Modernize or Die CFML News Edition. So today, November 12th, I have Brad Wood with me today.
What's up? It is, in fact, November 12th all day today, from what I hear.
Yep. So hopefully if you guys got some time off yesterday to enjoy Veterans Day, and thank you, few veterans. My kids were in the parade. They had lots of fun. But back to work today.
Nice.
So
cool.
So probably the biggest news of the week is something from Adobe. You want to tell us about it, Brad?
Biggest news of the week from Adobe, that is, in fact, the 2020 pre-release has been announced. So there's been a post over on the Adobe forum and some tweets. And basically, if you want to be part of the Adobe ColdFusion 2020 pre-release testing, they have a SurveyMonkey survey you can go and fill out, ask you some questions about like your team size, what kind of features you're interested in testing, what operating systems you'll test on. And you can basically sign up to be a part of the pre-release. So I've already filled it out, and I'm looking forward to testing out the 2020 features.
Cool. Now, obviously 2020, it's going to be released sometime next year. So in the history, they usually have 2 or 3 sort of releases, right? So we're probably got a few.
They usually
of them
will have
coming
a series of. They don't really label them like alphas or betas. I wish they would. It's actually really annoying, to be honest, because they have they did 2018. It was 2018.0.0. And then they released like 2018.0.1. Then that was like the pre-release version. And then when the final version came out, they went back to 2018.0.0, but with like a different build number. And I was like, please, one version ever. So what I usually do is I stick them on ForgeBox for command box users. And I'll just label them. I'll change up what Adobe does because I don't do it right, and I'll make it be like -alpha.1, -alpha.2. Because otherwise, you end up with multiple versions of 2018.0.1 that aren't the same thing. But yeah, that's the long answer to your short question, which is they'll have several kind of iterations where people will submit bugs in the alpha, and then they'll come out with a new version. And usually in the past they'll do. And I don't quite understand the difference between. They'll do kind of like a private pre-release and a public pre-release. So maybe they've already been doing the private pre-release and this is the public version. I'm not sure how long it's been going on, but I'm excited to take a look at it, especially the OSGI and modularization features that should be part of it.
Yeah, and obviously these pre-releases, you're restricted on what we can say. So if you're in the pre-release, then you can talk about that to other people in the pre-release. But if you guys want to find out what's going on, you really got to keep in the pre-release. So sign up. There's usually a forum there where you can discuss different things. There's a bug tracker for stuff, and they try and fix things as they go. It's a pretty cool experience. So you can do as little or as much as you need to, but if you're kind of curious, I definitely say go sign up. So we have the links there in the show notes, so definitely check it out. Keep up on the edge, and I mean they need testing too, so that's another thing. You're not just going to find out what's new or whatever. Find stuff, help fix stuff, so that way when it does come out, it's a little more polished. They need our help, especially framework administrators and stuff. We know we have to get on top of it to make sure all our products work when it comes out. That's usually a big task, is trying to get all those little things fixed. So
yeah, there's 2 kinds of testing. I think there's the new features they document that people need to go through and make sure they work, and then there's just the regression testing. Run it against as much existing code as you can. ColdBox frameworks, Framework 1, Framework CF Wheels, all the existing stuff that's out there. Run it against it and make sure they haven't broken anything, because it's bad for everybody when the release makes it live and then people are like, oh, it broke, this framework, and it turns out nobody tested it. So this is your chance to do that.
Yep, and just another side note. So since Brad said he puts them up on ForgeBox, that's going to be a secret link. You won't be able to just search for it and find it, pull it down if you're not in the pre-release program. So he'll probably post that.
Yes,
to the pre-release
I
group.
hide them, and I only let you know if you're in the pre-release how to install them. But it makes it way easier to test their alpha installations.
Yep, for sure. So very cool. So we also have some new releases, some of them by the Ortus team. So we have Quick 2.4.0 was released this last week. So Eric Peterson, he was on the podcast last week with me. We were busy making some progress in the evenings on our on-site. And so he's got a few things there. So this can be custom setters when hydrating from the database. Query scopes can now return any value, including a builder instance or nothing. Better error messages for not loaded entities, which is always big, right? We always want useful error messages. So that's a big plus for Quick over normal ORM. And then, yeah, they've got a couple of fixes there for correcting mementos, etc. So if you go to Ortus Books and click on Quick, you can see the What's New section there. And it's available on ForgeBox as well. But we've also done an update to the Lucee Redis Extension 1.4.0. So that one's been well tested by a lot of people out there lately. So we had to go make some compatibility updates for Lucee. And it is a minor release, but it does have quite a few little updates.
Yeah, there were some changes in how Lucee treated the default settings for cache providers and one of the 5.3 releases, I believe. So it used to be if your like CFconfig definitions didn't have all the default values, it seemed those would get pulled in, but that stopped happening at some point. So we had to add some additional checks. But Luis went crazy with the Java streams and did a whole bunch of performance updates while he was in there. So looking forward to the Lucee Redis extension release for anybody that's using that.
Yep, so that's available on ordersolutions.com's blog. So that's version 1.4.0. So definitely go check that out. And then on Cray Run, Luis and the other...
You got to say it right. you got to commit to it.
Sorry, I'll just let you do that then. So ForgeBox.
You give me like a signal, like a wink or something, and I'll do it. Cray.
But ForgeBox 4.8.0 was released. So obviously we have the ForgeBox.io website, which is basically the community edition, but these changes also affect the enterprise edition for those of you who are running ForgeBox Enterprise. But there's a lot of great fixes and some additions to that. So I know that Brad's been waiting on a couple of bugs there. So they're fixed at last, Brad. What
exactly is ForgeBox Enterprise, Gavin?
Well, that's basically a way for you to have your own personal private ForgeBox. So if you want to set up for your organization so you can manage the users and have it locked down so it's just you, this enterprise edition is basically your very own copy of ForgeBox. So
does that mean you'll come out to people's office and you'll publish the packages for them? Like you'll sit in front of the computer and you'll publish their packages?
No, that's definitely not the case. Sorry.
Because that would be a value add worth paying for. No, you're right. The new version of ForgeBox has a handful of little fixes and things. One of the newest versions of Lucee quit working with extension URLs that had like a space in them, and so we had to push out some stuff for them. There's also just some little UI fixes that have been floating around that I was like, let's get these pushed out. So ForgeBox thinks it's all fancy now. It's caught up with the command box version 4.8. Can somebody say copycat?
Yeah. So if you're using ForgeBox.io, you might see a couple of new additions in there, and you can find out more about what was done in that blog post on ordersolutions.com. And if you're watching live, Brad might even paste it for you.
Already did, man.
Oh, you're too fast for me. So another release this time, but basically CFCamp has got their video package available. So the recordings of all the CFCamp sessions are available up on videos.2019.cfcamp.org. And if you were an attendee, you should get an email with a personal link, which is included for free. And if you did not go, but you'd still like to watch them, there's a small fee. I believe it's $90, and then you can purchase all 28 videos. So $3 a video is a pretty good deal, or $3.20. But so
80 euros.
No, I think that was actually dollars. I went to the Vimeo site and it was showing American dollars, I believe.
Oh, interesting. I'm just going off of, I got an email this morning about it as an attendee of CFCamp. And it said that, I'm trying to find it now. It said it would show up in the shopping cart as 80 euros. and I was to ignore the cost because the discount code they gave me would take it down to zero.
Well, it says $90.
No, that wasn't an email. I guess that was in Slack. I saw the message come across several places because I think Mishi also posted about it in the events channel.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know where I saw it now.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to the
I
site,
can't find it anywhere.
It shows dollars. I guess we'll have to check it out. So it looks like dollars for me, but €80, $90, probably about right, maybe. So
yeah, if you're an attendee though, you get it for free, which is what's pretty cool. I know a lot of work goes into recording the sessions and recording not just with a camera slapped up there, but actually capturing the direct screen output of the presenters' laptops. And if anyone hasn't ever done a conference before, that's a lot more work than you would think it would be.
Yep, I can attest to that.
Yeah, Gavin helps us record the sessions for Into the Box, and it's a crap ton of work. So huge props to Mishi and Nat for getting that done with his CFCamp team, because that's pretty cool. Because you go to the conference and you basically miss half the conference because you can only go to one talk at a time unless you've cloned yourself. So this kind of gives you the rest of the conference experience, and it's a lot of work for them to do that. So we appreciate that.
Yep, and even if you did attend the session, sometimes you need to watch it again so you can let it sink in a little more and maybe take real notes, or maybe you were just not quite with it when you were there because your brain was fried from all the great info.
Watch it at half speed because I talk so fast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you have to watch it at half speed to see my slides go very slowly across the screen. But so go check those out. Next, we also have a notification about the Seattle ColdFusion user group meeting. So it's actually tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the WeWork in Bellevue, Washington, I believe. So they have an online Zoom meeting as well. So if you want to do that, online will start about 6:30. So if you go to www.seattlecfug.org, you can get more information on that. And we have a link here for the meetup group. So if you go to meetup.com, Seattle-ColdFusion-user-group, you can find them there. And it's really nice that they'll do online versions as well. So very cool. And then next we have Charlie's online ColdFusion meetup.
Love seeing the content getting brought back around to the online meetup. That's pretty nice to see some activity over there.
Yeah, we have
web acceleration to the rescue with Bruno Zuge. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Looks we're talking about caching, or caching, as you Kiwis say it.
Yep, it looks like he's talking about
this one. I like it.
Yeah, he's talking about Varnish cache. So I know with WordPress they use Varnish a lot. That's how they make it usable. With PHP being a non-session system and everything else, Varnish is the glue that makes everything work for them. And so
whenever I hear Varnish, all I can think of is just like getting high, sniffing it or something. I don't know. It's just not a name I would have gone with, but maybe they have a reason for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but so it's kind of interesting. I've never actually heard anyone talk about Varnish with regards to ColdFusion, but he says whether you're using it on Windows or Linux, Apache IIS or whatever, Varnish can help. So I mean, it's apparently super performant, so it'll be kind of good to watch. So that's November the 14th, so Thursday, and that's 6 p.m. Eastern time. So again, that's one of those late times, and the meetup group is meetup.com/ColdFusion meetup. And then last week, if you missed Dave Ferguson,
6 Eastern is still what? So it's 5 Central, 3 Pacific, right?
Yep, but usually they have them at 12 Pacific. 12 Eastern.
Oh, they do like a lunch thing.
Well, yeah, so they do a lunch Eastern or early, but some of the different people have different times. So the last one with Dave.
Well, the
Ferguson
good thing is, I think Charlie records all of them.
Yeah,
in fact, I believe that he has the recording of the online meetup that we just got done, which is Dave Ferguson, titled "Sequel." I learned enough to break everything. So that was a recent online meetup that the recording's available now, I believe.
Yep, that was last week. So yeah, if you missed it, you can always check those out. So Charlie has them all available there. So very cool. So with that said, that's all of our current news and events. But we have conferences coming up. So
conferences.
Into the Box LatinoAmerica LATAM is going on.
I had never heard of LATAM before. I guess that's the thing that everybody from Latino America knows what it is, but LATAM, LATAM.
Yep, we're not cool enough, Brad. But
no, we're not cool enough.
So December 4th in San Salvador, El Salvador, just a one-track, one-day conference, but presented all in Spanish. We have all the Ortus speakers going to be there. So we have Luis Mahano, Edgardo Cabreras, Jorge Reyes, John Clausen. Oh, basis, sorry.
Means head.
Yeah, you know me, I can't pronounce anything. Esmeralda Acevedo.
You got his first name right, though. That's what counts.
It took me long enough. I got it all wrong for like a whole conference before I figured it out. I keep thinking Eduardo, but nope, it's a G. But Stephanie Manji, Javier Quintero. No. Yeah, I got it right this time.
Yeah,
and then Luis Vega. So lots of great content. So if you go to latam.intothebox.org, you can see that. Use Google Translate if you're like me and can't understand it. But tickets are available on Eventbrite. A nice price as well. They're a good price, one-day conference, and we're really excited.
There's some pretty good discounts if you're a student as well.
Yep, and then I'm actually recording a few interviews with some of the speakers and whatnot, and we'll be releasing that. I think we might actually have a new edition of our podcast, which might be called the Conference Edition, because Soapbox is sort of more evergreen content. The news is, meant to be weekly, so we thought we might throw out a Conference Edition, which we just have a whole bunch of conference speaker interviews and stuff. So we might have another podcast for you guys to subscribe to too soon.
Evergreen.
Yep, that's the plan. So that's Into the Box LATAM. And then next, we've got those in India. We have a conference for you too.
Yep, CF Summit India. They're in Bangalore, which I found out last week is the same as Bengaluru. Learned my Indian history last week. So, of course, this is the ColdFusion India Summit. I believe it's held at the Adobe ColdFusion headquarters, which is pretty sweet. Luis was just out there a few weeks ago when he did his training. And so I forget exactly how many people they're looking to have, but I swear it's like 200 or 300. So they have a lot of people that show up to the India version of CF Summit. So that's pretty cool.
And I believe it's free over there too. It's complimentary.
Yeah, I mean they make it pretty easy to get to. And maybe that's why there's so many people, but I think it's awesome. You don't hear a lot from some of the ColdFusion developers that are over there in India, so I'm really glad they have a good turnout there at the CF Summit. So if you know anybody that's in India and then Bangalore area that does ColdFusion, has a team of developers, make sure that they're aware of that, because that's right there in their backyard.
Yep, we have a tweet a little later. Yogesh Mathur is actually going. He tweets about how he enjoyed the workshop with Luis, and he's excited about the conference. Is wondering who else is going. So we'll mention that a little later. But if you want to reach out to him and maybe have a little meetup, and it'll be good to meet some other developers over there. So very cool. And then next on the list, Into the Box 2020. So
oh wait, sorry, did I miss the wrong signal?
Yeah, so last week we actually announced that we're using Paper Call for this year's speaker call for speakers. So if you guys are interested in speaking, it's available now. The link will be in the show notes, but it's www.papercall.io/ITB2020. So if you guys want to go and sign yourself up.
Yep, so that's open. So speaker submissions, start them rolling in, folks. Obviously we focus on the box products to a degree, but that is by no means the extent of our content. So our rule of thumb is needs to be directly applicable to ColdFusion developers. So that can include tooling, that can include deployment, that can include cloud. We have talks on Nginx, on Couchbase. Anything that's immediately useful to ColdFusion developers is fair game. So submit those topics, and you don't need to have a lot of experience presenting. It can be your first time. It's a pretty laid back format. So if your talk sucks, then we'll let you know. But until then, assume we're probably interested, and you should submit it.
Yep, and then we'll help guide you too. We all started off as our first talk some point somewhere, and get some practice. I did an online one first, which is great because you can't see the crowd, so you don't have to worry about being nervous. But at the same time, you can't see the crowd, so you don't know if they're interested or not. But it's definitely a good way to present. I mean, even presenting yourself, recording it, and you can watch it later. Just get used to producing. And
if you want to try a talk out, I'm sure Charlie Earhart would be happy to have you on the online CF meetup.
Yep, good idea. So
get you all warmed up and prepped for Into the Box.
Yep. So May 6th to 8th in Houston, Texas. We're going to be in the Woodlands at the Hyatt Place. So same venue as last year. We had a good turnout last year. We had fun with a Happy Box and a lot of great things, and we had a lot of attendees. So.
And the Mariachi Band, the only ColdFusion conference that features a Mariachi Band every year. And nobody else can claim this, Gavin. No one.
Yep, exactly. And we even did a live podcast. That was when we announced this podcast. So it'll be a year. So it'll be pretty interesting to do our basically an anniversary of our first podcast there next year. So pretty cool.
That's right. Yeah, the first podcast was Into the Box last year.
Yep.
It's flying by. We made it past 7 episodes, man.
Yep, exactly. We're on our way. Okay, so let's get into blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So we have a little Ben Adele corner again. He's been busy, but he's been working on quite a few different things. But one of them he messed with was the caching per application settings. So I guess his application CFC has a lot of things going on. So he's talked about setting up mappings, custom path, data sources, SMTP servers, all this stuff, and basically setting up all the routes inside of for Framework 1, all in the pseudo constructor for the application CFC. And so he was wondering if caching might speed things up. So long story short, keep it simple. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. But he went through a whole experiment sort of trying to figure out if that would be worthwhile or not. So if you guys are curious, it's a good read. Ben always, likes to think things through and basically out in public, which is nice. I like that, you get to see his thought process and see, but, so it's a good article there. I like the way that he actually, sort of brings out some of his little thought processes into the public eye. A lot of the cool stuff he's doing with Vision, which is a really successful company that he started there. And it's pretty cool to see. So.
Yep. We also have another one from Ben called Confusion Over This Dot Mappings and Expand Path Not Working in Lucee. And I think a ticket in the Lucee bug tracker came out of this. But basically he spent about 3 hours trying to figure out why some of his expand path calls weren't working as he expected based on the stop mappings he had in his application.cfc. And so Ben kind of goes through his trial and error there. And it turned out that whether or not the directory existed on disk changed how expand path behaved. So as part of that logic, it's asking, is the directory actually there? And if not, it kind of changes the behavior. So he has that documented in that blog post.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. I guess you wouldn't think that it had file I/O in there, but something to be considered of, I guess, is, if you're hitting the file system, it's obviously going to be a little slower too, so something to be aware of there.
The logic behind expand path, I know, is quite convoluted. There's a lot of weird little edge cases that it accounts for. In the past, when I've put in tickets for it, Misha, the lead developer of Lucee, will tell me, every time we change it, we're always going to break something because everybody, depends on this little weird behavior that it does in this one scenario. And if you change that, then this guy over here, his code won't work right. So I know it's a pretty complicated chunk of logic there.
Cool. So we also had the announcement from our chief about the pre-release. So we put that on the blog post too, just in case you guys missed it. So you can read a little more about that. And then this is where the bin corner that I was interested in. So we had a couple more query of query articles. So we started a little.
Love us some queries. Good stuff.
Yep. So he basically went through and compared query queries and array functions. And so he called it a superficial performance comparison because obviously.
Aren't they all?
Yeah, well, that's his point. So basically, he's running through thousands of records and doing it lots of times, and then comparing. And long story short, queries of queries are still very fast for most cases. And what he was doing, the arrays were faster because it wasn't having to, pass SQL and this and that. But it was faster. It was basically, it was twice as fast or 2 times faster than the query of queries, but that was only in his limited work case. And again, I think it was 70 milliseconds versus 25 milliseconds for thousands and thousands of rows or something like that. So yes, there's it's a multiplier, but at the same point, it's so low, like it's not even, round trips matter more than that, for communication and stuff. So
yeah, that'll probably be the fastest thing your page does. I think one of the biggest takeaways is you always need to measure the performance of your app, right? A test inside of a CF loop or whatever is always interesting, but worry most about how your actual application is performing, under real load. I've seen CF query calls that were fast and ones that were slow, and sometimes it depended on how the where clause was built inside of it. So there's a lot of factors that can play into that.
And
I'm
indexes.
definitely in favor of what's that?
Oh. Said an indexes. Make sure you put indexes on the right table. I had this issue where
indexes don't exist in queries though. That's
I know, but just in general, queries themselves. I had talk about feeling stupid. I had a bug in one of my SQL applications where I right click, edit a table on my tool, and when I save it, the list would jump. And so when it jumped, I would jump up the list. And so next time I went to check to see if my indexes were on this table, it was in a different table because I had some similarly named tables for this multi-tenant app. And so I kept checking the wrong table. And so I was wondering why this thing was so slow. And it's just because I didn't have indexes on the right one, because the UI would jump the list and I would click on the next table on the list, which would actually be a table 20 rows higher than I thought it was. So, yeah.
Tricky. We need to get Ben turned on too. CB streams. I'm just reading through his blog post. He's got the query version, and he has a bunch of chained member functions, map, filter, sort. We need to get Ben turned on to streams, because then he can parallelize these suckers. And I bet you will definitely be faster in queries then.
Yep. So Ben should read Matt Gifford's series on streams and then test some of that out himself.
Cray.
But Ben had another query ones, replacing ColdFusion query inner join and left joins with array functions. So I actually did this for a client just recently because they had some really big some joins they were doing, but the joins were the fields they needed were huge. So the big text fields, and the query wasn't that much faster when you took those fields out, but when we had a big number and just the where clauses and the grouping, it made a significant difference, especially when you're hitting 200,000 records and you're bringing back these text files. So we just did an array function to basically bring those back in after all the sorting, and it did make a big jump. So this one here, he's basically using the arrays to fix some of that there. So inner joins, left joins.
It's interesting that Ben had this article, because the topic of doing a left adder join in queries had actually just come up on the CFML Slack this week as well. So that's kind of been a long-standing missing feature, if you will, is being able to do a left adder join in query. So it's interesting to see it come up. I'd also pointed out if you wanted to do a left adder join, there is a CB Commons module for ColdFusion that's been around forever. And it has a query utility. Ironically, many of the functions inside that little query utility today really are superseded by the built-in functionality of CFML. But one of the sort of useful ones it has in there is a left adder join method that sort of just kind of does a manual left adder join. So anyway, I drug that back out of the history books just recently in Slack, and then I saw that Ben was also blogging about it.
Yeah, I wonder if that triggered that one there. So very cool. So we saw that you were on Twitter as well. So I guess there's been a lot of security issues with XML parsing lately. So it looked like Pete.
Yeah, I used the word recent in my tweet, though it's really not incredibly super duper recent. It's one of those interesting things where XML parsing has quote unquote features that are kind of cool, but can also be incredibly dangerous. So it's sort of like, is it really a bug? Is it not? Does it make your code less secure? Yes, potentially it does. And so in XML, you can have these external entities where an XML document can reference some external document that can literally point to an HTTP URL. I think it could even do like FTP. And so what that allows a hacker to do is to build an XML document. And you may think like, well, I'm not using XML directly. But if you're even allowing users to upload maybe like an Excel spreadsheet that uses the XML format behind the scenes, that's all XML parsing. And so, a malicious XML document can have these external entities that can be, downloaded from some remote server that you may not trust. And there's some nasty things you can do inside of those. And a lot of the XML parsers, they still allow that functionality because, like I said, it's a feature of the XML parsing, but it's one that can be abused quite easily. So while a lot of the Java XML parsing engines give you the ability to turn off those features, the ColdFusion servers, Lucee and Adobe ColdFusion, don't necessarily expose those toggles and switches to you as a CFML developer. So you're kind of stuck with those quote unquote features just being left on. So what Pete Freitag did is he kind of made a safe XML parse. It's basically a drop-in replacement for any time you're using XML parse in your code. But it ignores, it kind of turns off all those sort of dubious or questionable features in XML parsing in such a way that a malicious XML document wouldn't be able to do nasty things to your server. So that's a pretty cool thing. Pete's out there looking out for us and scaring our pants off.
Yep. So we linked to the tweet as well as the ForgeBox entry for that too. So that's up on ForgeBox, so you can get that easily there. Okay, and then we had another one from Charlie. Charlie Earhart blogged about how to implement a special hotfix that Adobe may give you to fix a CF update. So this is something that a lot of people don't know, but if you are a licensed user of ColdFusion and there's something that needs to go out quickly and it's urgent, they may not have time to get out to a major hotfix release, but they can actually give you like a hotfix for you to be able to update yourself. And I know this happens for several things, and so they'll actually give it to you. But Charlie said if you don't do it quite right, you could actually cause more problems than it's worth. And so if you do these steps, follow these steps he has, it's a safer way to do the update. And so
then you have to pay him to come fix it for you. I fail to see the issue.
Yeah. So yeah, Charlie's obviously fixed this for a lot of people who run into these issues. So that's why he shares this information. So, if you feel comfortable enough doing it, follow these steps and you should be a safe way to update and fix your update. But if not, pay Charlie and he'll do it for you. So, but yeah. So thanks, Charlie, for that. And a tweet just came out. So Michaela Light said that the 100th episode of CF Alive is to be released soon. So,
wow.
Recorded with Nolan. So they had a
lucky guy. He got the 100th episode. Dang it.
Yep, he's just too special. So they're editing that right now, and it should be released soon. So they made it to 100, Brad. So we gotta keep working.
CF Alive made it well past 7. Yep. If you don't get the reference from what Gavin's seen online, podcast apparently will statistically never make it past 7 episodes. That's kind of where most people peter out. So if you can make it past 7 episodes, then you've done better than most podcasts. So that's our golden standard. Make it past 7.
Yep, exactly. We're at 27 now, so we're doing okay. So
ooh, there we go.
Yep. So teartech.com/podcast is where you can see the CF Alive podcast. And they have a lot of good interviews with a lot of people. So definitely a good podcast if you want to check that out. And then James Moberg had a couple of tweets as well. So I guess he tweeted about a ColdFusion bug. And this is from history, but they're just talking about bugs, etc., that came up as updates come out. And he said that he recorded another ColdFusion bug regarding default arguments that negatively impacted us, where remove equals no is identified as the default for CFML param. During a past update, omitting this argument caused files to be deleted, so now he has to always set it. And he had hashtag fooled me once, or fooled once. So I guess, yeah, so basically, the files are basically being deleted all the time because remove equals no is no longer a default. So with CFML, you can set it to remove equals true, and after the email is sent, the spool's gone and it's sent, the file gets removed automatically, which is nice for cleanup. But if you want to keep that around, maybe you're generating a report that can be, seen elsewhere, not having that param would be a problem. So
if only Adobe ColdFusion supported the amazing feature that Lucee Server supports that allows you to set default attribute values in your application.cfc for tags across the entire application. If only.
Yeah. Yep, because then you don't have to put it on every single tag.
Yeah. My favorite use for that is this.tags.location.add CF token, I believe, or add token equals false. And then all your CF location tags in your entire application all have add token equal to false with that one line of code. Yep. But this doesn't help Mr. James Moberg.
Yep, we use a framework that handles it for you, right?
Well, yeah. I don't ever write CF location because I use ColdFusion and I use the relocate method. And it exactly appropriately defaults that for me. But anyway, nice of James to point that out, though. He's always good at catching stuff like that.
Yep, and he had another one too. I guess if you're using XLSX files, which is the XML version of the XLS spreadsheets, I guess when you're using ColdFusion spreadsheet, if you have multiple headers with the same name, basically they'll override. So the columns, if there's two columns named name, ColdFusion is only going to pull one of them, and so you won't be able to get the second one. So
I'm trying to decide if that's actually a bug or not.
Well, it's just a weird occurrence where, maybe you shouldn't name your columns the same if you want the data to be accessible. But
the trick is you can't be sure that a user will never do that. It's not like Excel, forces you to have unique column names. Internally, there's obviously some sort of logic that references them by name and not, by their ordinal position. This actually reminds me, I have a ticket I need to put in regarding XLSX files in Adobe ColdFusion.
What is it?
It has absolutely nothing to do with James's tweet. Just reminded me I need to put in this ticket. If you have a really large file, an application with one of our clients, and users will go upload files sometimes, and every once in a while they'll somehow generate these files, and there'll be like 1 million empty rows at the end of the file, which is all represented in the XML internally, and it just absolutely crashes the poop out of Adobe ColdFusion. It doesn't handle those big files. It's really not. I don't think it's ColdFusion's bug as so much as it is the POI library behind the scenes that has to parse out that XML. But at any rate, anyway, I need to make a note to put that ticket in. And whenever I see a reference to Excel, I'm always like, I need to get a reproducible case for that ticket. Yeah, rattling around the back of my brain still.
A lot of rattling there. Okay,
there's a lot of rattling.
So you had another tweet, man. You're on a roll last week. So
you've been stalking me on Twitter. You have all my tweets in here.
They just keep popping up when I'm doing my filters.
Oh, that's right. I think I was replying to Ben Nadell. Yeah, he had a little post talking about how null is handled, and an old trick to get a null value in ColdFusion is to do JavaCast. First parameter is null, and just give it an empty string as the second parameter, and that'll give you a null value. Of course, if you have full null support turned on, null is a keyword, and you can just say null. But the default behavior of ColdFusion without full null support is people will use that JavaCast. However, if you're on Lucee server, there's a nice little trick where there's a built-in function called null value, which just returns a null. And so if you're doing any code in Lucee, it's a little bit less typing just to call that null value function, as opposed to doing the JavaCast with the two parameters passed in. So
yeah, it looks a little neater too. So
yeah, and then one of those nice little things Lucee does that I should probably put in a ticket for Adobe to match it, because it's just darn handy sometimes.
Yep, for sure. And so then right after that, we have Ben's blog about safe navigator operator works in comparison expression even when null. So that was an interesting. Basically, the short of this one is that null values aren't a problem in ColdFusion. It's null references that are problematic. So basically, if you set something to null and then try and use it, you have issues. But if you just JavaCast null inside of an expression, it'll work. It'll actually evaluate. So you can do JavaCast null equals JavaCast null, and that'll be true. But if you say value equals JavaCast null and then try and use that value inside of an expression, it'll blow up. So he's talking about how to use the safe navigator operator and discuss that. But I thought that was kind of interesting too. So
yeah, and the safe navigation operator, if anyone's not aware of it, I think Lucee had it first. I forget when they added it, and then Adobe ColdFusion 2018 added it. But sometimes if you have struct nested inside of other structs, and you have this reference, it's like, outer struct dot inner struct dot yet another inner struct dot key. But you're not sure if all of the inner structs exist. You find yourself doing this if struct key exists and struct key exists and struct key exists kind of nonsense, which gets really verbose. So what the safe navigation operator lets you do is type, outer struct question mark dot inner struct question mark dot yet another inner struct question mark dot key. And then instead of getting a big, blow up error at runtime, if one of those structs doesn't exist, CFML just stops evaluating once it reaches a null, and the entire expression just comes back as null. So that's the safe navigation operator that Ben was playing with in the blog post, and it really is handy. A lot of the JVM languages do similar things.
Yeah, I like that because I've definitely written code where I've got too many structs, and that's why people use isDefined, right? Because it just saves you having to do all that.
So. Yeah, because it isDefined kind of lets you cheat, where you can just say, just give it the full variable name, and you cram it into isDefined, and if it fails anywhere along the way, it kind of gives up. But isDefined can not always be as performant since it's doing scope hunting internally. Yeah, I mean, you try to code defensively, and say, well, what if the struct doesn't exist? But when it gets really verbose sometimes, which is where operators like the safe navigation one comes in handy.
Yep, I like that. So, and then we had that tweet from Yogesh that I mentioned earlier about CF Summit. So he said, after awesome Zero to Hero training with Luis Mahano, we're ready for another conference. So ColdFusion India Summits 2019 at Adobe Bangalore office on December 7th. Who's going to be there? Let's meet. So if you want to catch up with Yogesh and his team, he's a good guy. He's got a good team of developers, and we do a lot of work with them. They help a lot of the ColdFusion products out with some pull requests and everything. And so they're a good bunch of guys. I know they had a lot of fun there. Luis had fun with that training. So if you guys are going to go, check it out. Maybe you can meet up and good to catch up with some other ColdFusion.
I'm totally jealous. We got to find a way for me to get to India, Gavin.
I was thinking it'd be fun just to crash their party.
India is like this. It's one of the countries on like listed places I would love to travel to. I mean, the food, people, the stuff to see there. I need a good reason to spend all the money to get over there.
CF Summit India sounds like a good reason.
Hashtag send Brad to India just because he wants to go.
Hey, we've got a conference there. That's a good reason to go. So
I know. So
well, you're not going to El Salvador, so tell
I'm not.
Tell Luis, hey, send me over here.
Yeah, we talked about it last week with the numbers they have for the Adobe CF Summit. I mean, Into the Box India. Let's make it happen, Luis. Love me some Indian food. Let's do it.
Too funny.
Okay, so last tweet, another one of mine, and you won't quit stalking me on Twitter.
I think this one's a good one.
Well, yeah, it's a frustrating one. I mean, it's good, but it represents like months of frustration on my part. But basically, the command box, the current alpha sort of snapshot builds, 4.9 alpha, have come a long ways. I've got them running right now, fingers crossed, hacky workarounds in place on Lucee 5.3, which is taken a ridiculous amount of time due to just kind of regression after regression happening in the 5.3 branch. I would get one regression fixed and another one would pop up, and so I could never start using that. So Lucee 5.3 was sort of a major release. The way Lucee handles it is minor releases are kind of like major releases. It's weird. So they break things by design. They'll put breaking changes into that. So 5.3 was a big departure from 5.2, new PDF rendering engine, a lot of stuff like that. So I finally think I have Lucee 5.3 working in command box, but that's not all. Not Lucee. Java 11 support is another really big thing that's been missing. People have to run command box CLI on Java 8, which is turning into a real pain in the booty because all the Linux distributions, which means like your Travis CI stuff, they're all shipping with Java 11 as the default JDK, which makes sense. I mean, Java 8's been out of support for like a millennia now, right? But I'm still stuck on Lucee 5.2 in the stable version of the command box. So people are all getting held in the past. So Java 11 support finally. And plus, we've also got a new version of Runwar, which is the Java library that powers the servers behind command box. Whenever you start a server, that uses Runwar. And Runwar 4.0 has just a ton of fixes and improvements. You're able to dial in a bunch of extra tuning settings and Undertow. We've got new versions of Undertow. I've updated pretty much every Java library inside of CommandBox. JGit, JLine, the JANZ, all the nonsense that powers it all. So that's out there. Let me link to the tweet here. I've got a link to our artifact server where all the builds are stored for the 4.9 alpha. And I didn't say this in the tweet, Gavin, but I'll add it here. There's a really good chance, I believe, I'm going to go ahead and bump CommandBox 5.0 for this.
I would.
Just since it's
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a really big change. There's nothing particularly breaking about it. Well, actually, there is. The PDF engine is breaking. And in another really annoying Lucee regression, there's no way you can revert to a classic PDF from the CLI because regressions. So I guess there are technically some things that are potentially breaking there about it. But anyway, I had kind of held off on that because we have the CommandBox 4.x series is on the Department of Defense DADDMS. I don't know, some like software list of approved software, which takes a lot of paperwork to get stuff on. So if you're in, the Navy or Department of Defense, you can use CommandBox if your department obeys that software list of approved software. But we have clients that use CommandBox, and they're going to have to go through all the paperwork again for CommandBox 5.0 because it's all kind of based on the major version, which sort of sucks for them, I guess. So I was like, oh, geez, do I want to bump the major version because I don't want to screw over, government agencies that only have approval for CommandBox 4x. And now, 5x is going to be a new major version. But I think we've worked through that with some of our clients, and they'll be able to make it work. So probably going to be a 5.0 bump. But what that means is I need a lot of testing on this. So I'm probably going to – I haven't heard anything yet, which either means nobody's tested anything or it's going good. I don't know. I don't know which is the case.
I do.
But I'm probably going to go through at least one release candidate before I release this, just since there's so much potential for stuff to be broken, and I want to make sure it's stable. It really makes me nervous because I say nervous. It makes me cautious. There's a lot of people, they're running production sites in CommandBox. I can't afford to shove something out there that's like completely broken. And there's just so many jars that have changed behind the scenes. I'll probably do a whole release candidate, an RC build, which gives me a chance to kind of fully document, here's everything that's changed, get the docs out there for it. Please look at it. I beg you, please. And then if it looks really stable, anything needs to be fixed, I'll go for a stable release. But that's big news for anybody who needs stuff to run on Java 11. That's big news for anybody who wants newer Lucee 5.3 features from the CLI. So I'm excited, but that's just me.
Very cool. So this is a little news for next week.
News.
For more information about the 5.0 release candidate, hopefully. But very cool. So now we got time for Find a Job, the CFML jobs. So most of these jobs are from the Get CFML Jobs website, but there's a couple that we actually saw on Twitter that weren't there. So John Joyce on Twitter actually talked about City and Guilds. They're hiring 2 developers in London, and he said the plus side is you get to work with him. So, so there's a link there to the City and Guilds.
What is
group.
a guild? I always thought that was something in like World of Warcraft. Is it like a real thing over there?
Yeah,
City
I'm not sure
guilds.
exactly the definition, but
there you go.
So yeah,
apply.careers. There we go. I'll just throw the link in here.
Yeah.
So that is in London, UK.
Yep. But there's a couple of ColdFusion developer positions there. And that information is listed there. And we actually have that listed through the CFML jobs website too. They actually, looks like they pulled that in from Indeed, I believe. So there's as we said, the Get CFML jobs actually pulls it in from multiple sources. So we'll see there that's listed there as well. But there was another one from Paul Klinkenberg, or at Frankie. He's looking for a Dutch Lucee ColdFusion developer to join his team, Feedback Company. So we got a link there to the LinkedIn article there.
Yep, that's LinkedIn.
Yep.
So where are they located? It says Dutch. Is this out of Holland? Where is this at?
Well, it says Utrecht, CS.
Oh,
where's that?
Netherlands. Is that supposed to be Netherland? Maybe that's a Dutch spelling of it.
Possibly.
But it is Utrecht, Netherlands.
I'm
I'm
not
going to
sure.
admit that I'm completely clueless and I don't know where that is. But I'm guessing if you live there, you know who you are.
Yep.
And we've linked to it in the description. You know who you are.
Yeah, very cool. So,
oh yeah, this whole description actually appears to be written in Dutch. I like
yep.
Dutch because you can try to read it just out loud, and it kind of sounds like English. It's weird that way, like
Is that a good thing?
phonetically. You know, I don't know. It's just fun. I've been through Netherlands once before, you know, and like it's just the way stuff is spelled, like phonetically, like you can like tell what it's saying, even though it's clearly a different language.
Very cool. So we also have a senior ColdFusion developer for information analysis in the United States.
United States, they still use ColdFusion over there?
Apparently. So I guess ColdFusion developer is needed as part of a mainframe migration team. So sounds like a pretty interesting project there. So
mainframe. So wait, are they migrating to or from, or what's the?
Well, I'm not sure. You have to click on the link and read more to find out more about it.
You'll have to apply and be hired.
Yep. And then we also have... sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I've worked at a couple of places that actually used ColdFusion alongside a mainframe, like, an AS400 COBOL kind of thing, but kind of makes you wonder if they're coming to or from.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think most people are going smaller these days, but you never know. So it depends on what your business is.
Here we go. Setup configuration of the ColdFusion environment on Solaris Unix platform. Ooh, they're running ColdFusion on Solaris.
Yeah.
There we go. Work with conversion specialists to develop a template for converting obsolete mainframe modules into modern ColdFusion modules accessed in Oracle database. So they lost me at Oracle because I hate Oracle with an undying passion. But I like the sound of everything else. It actually sounds kind of fun, building some stuff from scratch to replace a legacy system and doing it modern. Nice.
Sounds very cool. And if you're in United States, you can apply for that.
Does it have a location on this guy?
It just says
United States.
Yeah. So
maybe it doesn't say if it's remote. It just says travel required.
Interesting.
Well, somewhere in the U.S. We don't know where.
Yep. Well, this one we know where. This one's in London, United Kingdom. ColdFusion developer for the Marcus Donald people. So they're recruiting for a ColdFusion developer to join an education-based team in central London. And then, so if you're interested in that in the area, or you're looking to maybe join that area, go check that out there too.
This feels like one of the first times we've had this many job postings that are outside the U.S.
Yeah, there's usually a couple in India, a couple in Australia too. We have those, but yeah, like I said, I'm trying to filter out more stuff off Twitter and LinkedIn and try and get more information into our list. So if you guys do have job offers, hit us up. We'll put it out there. We want to share the word and make sure everyone in the community can find a job and find a developer and keep everything moving. Okay.
I like it.
So good number of job opportunities there. So good luck anyone looking. And now let's move to ForgeBox Module of the Week. So here's one of those little teeny tiny modules that make a huge difference, but probably a small amount of code. So this is the hostname header module, and I wrote this one.
By Gavin Pekin.
Yep. So this was just to help us solve a problem. The module determines the server's internal host name, and it just creates a response header for you. So basically, that doesn't sound like much use if you're using CGI variables normally, but if your app is running in a clustered setup or using Docker swarms or something, your code could be running on lots of different servers. And if there's something weird going on, you want to know which server it's going on. So basically, this here just spits out a header for you, x-server-hostname. And so whenever you're pulling up your code, you can figure out what host it's actually running on. So a lot of times, if we're having Docker Swarm and there's something weird going on, this will help us identify which server it's on, so we can filter our Fusion Reactor or our Platana logs and figure out what's going on. So again, it's really pretty simple. It checks using Java, it checks using CGI variables, and all sorts of different things to get that host name. But if you want to use it, just do box install hostname header. And then once that is installed, you'll get a new header popping up, and it works locally as well. You'll have your desktop name popping up or whatnot. But we've already had over 4,000 installs of it, so people are using it. So, but it's a nice little Nice little helper module there. So remember,
That's just you installed it 4,000 times, didn't you? You wrote a
probably
loop, and you were like, "Look how many installs my package has."
that's quite possible. I mean, we have a build process on the customer sites we use it on, so they could be building it
Ooh,
on each
it's
one.
gone up. It's gone up one more since you took that screenshot in our show notes. It's up to 4,203 now.
Ooh.
You just installed it again, didn't you?
Nope.
I'm
But that's
on
a
to
good
your
idea.
tricks.
Next week I'll have one with 1 million installs.
It's actually fun. You can go to ForgeBox.io and you can sort by most popular, most installs, newest, and updated. It's fun just to come in here and click on like newest and like what's the last package that came in. Boom,
Okay.
safe XML parse. We talked about that. See,
Cool.
most installs. I bet it's Adobe ColdFusion.
Lucee.
No, TestBox. TestBox is the most installed. Oh my gosh, 221,000. Of course, that's because a lot of the build servers. How many Travis CI builds are out there, spin up, install TestBox, run their tests. That's so cool, though. ColdBox platform is number 2. Nice.
Getting there. But yeah, pretty cool. So if you guys
Lucee is 56,000 installs. Which, and that's a little tricky because Lucee, when you just type server start in command box, it doesn't download anything. It just uses the bundled jars. So the Lucee installs only counts when people say, server start CF engine equals, and they give it a specific version it needs to download. Adobe ColdFusion Engine, 48,000 installs. That's 48,000 people that started a command box server on an Adobe ColdFusion version that they didn't already have downloaded. That's awesome.
Is that I thought installs were people that actually used it. Downloads would be direct downloads, or is installs like if you have it in cache, does the installs go up?
No, if you have it in the artifacts cache, it does not count as an install.
Downloads
So really the download statistic in ForgeBox is sort of lame. In my opinion. But we had that back before we had command box because ForgeBox predates command box. So the only way that you tick the download number is if you go to a package on ForgeBox of any kind and you go to the versions tab and you click the little kind of 3-dot menu next to a version. So if I go into Lucee, I can pull up the 534 RC I don't see a link on this one. But anyway, and you can click the download, like manually download the file, just get the zip file down on your desktop. So that's the only way the download number increments. Typically, anytime you install something through command box, that always increments the install number. So installs are really the only thing that matter, in my personal opinion.
So, but if someone has it in their cache and they install it, it doesn't trigger the installs.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So
it doesn't.
This should be like. So we need to change our terminology or something. Because I think I think Eric thought the installs were something that came out of your cache.
No,
too,
no. So I mean, if you type from command box install ColdBox and you have nothing in your artifacts cache, it goes out to ForgeBox, it downloads it, and it ticks the install counter. And so I know it's a little confusing because we have downloads versus installs, but really downloads means manual download through the web UI, and install just means download it automatically via command box. That's all that means. So then, leaving your artifacts in place, if you switch over to another project and you type install ColdBox again, command box will be like, oh, geez, I have it right here in my local artifacts, and it doesn't increment the install number. So the install number in ForgeBox only counts when you installed something from command box and you didn't already have it downloaded, and command box reached out to ForgeBox and said, hey, I need to download this again. That's the only time the install number gets incremented. So like those Adobe ColdFusion and Lucee install numbers, that doesn't count all the time somebody starts a new server in a new folder using a version of ColdFusion they had downloaded the previous day. That's only, you go in and you've never downloaded this version before and you go out to ForgeBox and you get it. That's one install.
So we should call it CLI downloads or something.
And we could. I think we wrestle back and forth. I mean, frankly, I would just get rid of downloads because I think I'm honestly surprised there's like 5,000 or 6,000 manual downloads of like Lucee. I don't know who's doing that and why, because it seems kind of weird. Because I mean, why wouldn't you just
maybe we should just combine them and just call them downloads?
Well, we could. Well, at the time when we added installs, it was brand new, and we wanted to know the difference. Frankly, I think like the whole download workflow is kind of like a dinosaur at this point. Like, who goes and manually downloads something from ForgeBox unless they're working around some like ridiculous, government lockdown on their machine where they can't use the internet. A few of those people do exist. But personally, I would just as soon get rid of downloads because installs are all that really matter. I think everything effectively comes through installations. But anyway, yes, interesting.
Yep.
Interesting differences.
Okay, so that's ForgeBox for the week. Now let's go to VS Code, hints, tips, and tricks of the week. So this week we have one of these interesting modules. It's a spelling checker for Visual Studio Code. So Streetside Software put this out. It's got almost 1 million installs, almost 5 stars. So it's basic spell checker that works with like camel case code. And so if you're actually naming your variables with English related words, it'll tell you if you've misspelt them. And I know that you've tweeted or talked about it recently where someone, you found a misspelling and then you search your code base for how many times you misspelled it and you find like all these misspellings everywhere.
I posted it on LinkedIn, which was actually an accident. I meant to tweet it, but I have LinkedIn in my Hootsuite and I selected it on accident. But it was kind of fun because I got a ton of people who replied on LinkedIn, and they were all suggesting modules just like this. Because it was a word spelled wrong in my code, and I did an extended find every place, and I found like a bunch of places I had spelled it wrong. It was like, oh geez, that's embarrassing. So this extension can help prevent that embarrassment.
Yep. So it just catches common spelling errors, keeping the number of false positives low, and that's an important thing too. For you don't want to have a whole bunch of false positives. So yep.
And
so
you don't want to look like an idiot either.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So Streetside Software code-spell-checker. So if you guys want to install that, get that running, and then find out how many times you misspelled that word.
That's right. There's the link.
Okay, and then last but not least, thank you to all our Patreon supporters. We have a lot of great Patreon supporters, and we mention them all the time because a lot of them are involved in the community. As we mentioned, Yogesh Mathur is on our list too. He's the one that wants to meet up with anyone going to CF Summit in India. And we had some of the speakers recently on the ColdFusion Online Meetup as well, like Matt Clemente and everything. And it was fun to meet Eric Hoffman in Vegas. He was actually at the Zero to Hero workshop as well. So that was a good time. So a lot of great things going on, but let's just thank them all here. So Andrew Davis, Brian White, Kyle Von Stetten, Dali, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, David Bellinger, Tadialis Nikki, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Jan Yannick, Jeremy Adams, John Farrar, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamory, Laxma Tirahadi, Matthew Clemente, Richard Herbert, Samuel Knowlton, Scott Steinbeck, VJ, Yogesh Mathur. We thank you all.
If you're cool, you do it all in one breath. Only wimps have to stop and breathe in the middle.
I'll stop breathing. Brad told me to stop breathing, everybody. But thank you, everybody. Right. We really appreciate all your support. And those of you who aren't supporting via Patreon, a lot of great packages there if you'd like to do that, or reach out and see how you can help with pull requests and other things, because it's more than just money that helps make this community work. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
That's a wrap.
Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.